Oh
progresses
yeah,
anyway. But no,
fantastic.
fantastic. Well, thank you everyone, of course, for joining the webinar today, interviewing with confidence, our first of the year. So quite exciting to get the ball rolling, and of course, being able to provide some unique insights from our perspective as recruiters, and meeting with hiring managers and candidates on a daily basis. So hoping that, for everyone here, you'll be able to get a little nugget of knowledge, a little insight, give you a bit of extra confidence in a part of your next, whether it's your next interview or your next conversation you're having. Hopefully you can take something away from today, and really sort of bolster your next interview. I'll do some introductions to start off with. Myself, my name's Peter, based here in Melbourne with Paragon Group. I specialise particularly in that finance, accounting and payroll recruitment here. And I'll be joined by Caroline. Caroline, she's the Director of Melbourne here at Paragon Group. Someone fantastic for today's conversation, I think. 25 years of experience. And Kaz, I'm not too sure. There's a vertical. I don't know if there's a vertical you haven't actually recruited for so far in this. Is that right?
I reckon I'll give everything a go. I'll give
Yeah.
anything a go. Absolutely.
No, I don't think there's any area Kaz hasn't touched in terms of recruitment. So it will be great to have her insight, especially across a broad range of opportunities and roles that would have had exposure to. Kaz, I'll pass it to you to start us off and just run through the 5 topics we'll be chatting about today.
Yeah, awesome. So just to let everyone know also that the webinar will be recorded, and it will be sent out to you afterwards, as a replay. And then just in terms of questions, guys, please feel free as we go through just to pop questions into the chat box. And alternatively, feel free to leave it till the end. But yeah, we would like to get through as many questions as possible and make it as interactive as possible also. So look, today we're going to be covering 5 sort of key areas. The first is around building connection. So at interview, how do we really go about building rapport with the person that we're meeting? The second is around what we might call selling ourselves. How do we go about highlighting our strengths without it feeling kind of awkward? A lot of people, when I'm doing interview coaching with candidates, really, they don't enjoy that selling piece. So hopefully we'll be able to give you some insights into how to articulate your value proposition without feeling that discomfort. Number 3 is around the questions that you're going to be asking, right? The curiosity that you show. In my mind, the curiosity that you can show the interviewer really shows how much and how engaged you are in that role and in that company. We'll also talk about communication styles and how we can, I guess, try to be more authentic during the interview. And I was actually speaking to Pete about this just the other day, and I said, in the 25 plus years I've been in HR and recruitment, the interview process hasn't really changed. And I think that master servant type relationship, that hierarchical type environment, look, it's a lot better than it was 25 years ago, but let's try and get some authenticity into that conversation, and while still feeling that you're portraying that real you, and still remaining professional. Lastly, we'll give you an overview of the typical dynamics that you might see during an interview, what the structure is likely to be, and some things that you personally might want to think about just prior to that interview. So maybe we'll move on to the slide around building connection. So it sounds super, super simple. And if I had a pound or a dollar for every time I've gone through this with candidates, the research that you do is vital. Yeah, absolutely vital. Um, it the interviewer will really, really value the fact that you've taken the time, that you've taken the effort to do your research and really be informed around the opportunity, the role, the company, the person that you're meeting. And that will come through in the interview. And it really helps to build that connection because people want to know that you're engaged. Yeah. I'd recommend prior to any interview, really dissect the position description, right? And what I mean by this is think higher level, like what's the objective of the role? What is this role gonna want to achieve? What's the outputs that are required? What are the, if there's KPIs or targets or goals for the position? Really understand that because that will help you when you're being asked questions and it'll help define the type of answers that you're going to give. Yeah, so that would be the first thing I would go over. Look at that PD, look at the values that they might talk about, look at the way it's structured. It can tell you so much about that organization in advance. The company website, of course, is a great way, a great place to start. And it should give you an idea around the business's successes. It should give you an idea of their customer base, the values, their potential growth plans, and an insight into their culture. I've just seen something come up on the chat box. Are you able to look at that?
I think it was about just the slides.
Yeah.
I think we'll try and reset the PowerPoint if it's not quite
Cool.
working.
Sorry about that, guys. Technology here. Yes, I'm talking about the website. The website's not just about what does this company do. Yeah, many organizations are becoming a lot more sophisticated in what they're putting up there. There'll be a lot of videos, there'll be people from the organization that are, that work there that are giving some insights. There'll be a whole heap of information that will help you in terms of going through that interview and building up that connection with the organization. LinkedIn is an absolutely fantastic place to look so if you know who you're going to be interviewing in advance, just have a quick click on their profile. I promise you it is not creepy to do that. This is not Facebook. It's not, it's a work channel. So it would be expected that you would have a look at their profile, and it's going to tell you quite a lot of information around their background. You can look at some of the pages that these individuals follow, what their interests are, how long they've been with the business, so on and so forth. And you can allude to that and you can mention that when you're in the interview. As I say, please do not think that it's kind of off to do that. It's completely normal. Yeah.
You've got so many resources out there. Oh, I was going to say, you've got so many resources out there at your disposal. I mean, not even just the hiring manager. You can even sort of search it, the wider team that's there as well. You can even look at external resources, maybe, the sector that they're in if you're weighing up a bit of a career change. Even the news or media outlets. There's a lot of resources where you don't have to know if you can't find detail on the particular person you're meeting, you can find out information about maybe how the market's going in that particular industry. It's you don't not going to know everything, but sometimes those little pieces of information can just be a key thing that really builds a conversation and builds a connection in that meeting. But Kaz, I'll pass back to you. I know I just wanted to pop that in there.
No, that's you're absolutely bang on. And just around that communication piece, be aware of how the interviewer is communicating and try and mirror and match their style. So what I mean by that is, personally, I generally tend to talk really, really quickly. I can be quite high energy. Would you agree, Peter? And yeah, I can dart from this to that, and I need to be super conscious of my communication style. And depending on who we're talking to, we want to kind of go to their level. So if someone is a little bit slower, a little bit more considered in their communication, then I would tend to just adjust my communication to match that. It makes everyone feel a lot more comfortable. And it's not being not authentic, it's just showing a different part of your personality and potential communication styles. And I'm sure we do it all, every day, all day, with our families, our friends, our work colleagues, etc. So just bring that into the interview. It's like your eye contact, yeah, really super basic. Be aware with the eye contact piece if you do have multiple people on the interview panel that you are engaging with everyone, not just the person who is asking the questions. Your body language, use your body language to show interest, yeah. Nodding, yeah, that shows that you're listening, that you're engaging, that you're taking in what they're saying. So all of that, it's fairly basic, but at an interview situation, sometimes that goes out of the window, doesn't it? Because we're a little bit nervous, and yeah, we're probably not firing on all cylinders. So the next piece I'll go over is articulating your value proposition. And in my experience, this is the one area that candidates struggle with mostly. And I was, they don't want to be seen to be blowing their own trumpet. You don't want to be seen to be bigging yourself up. Humility is obviously a great trait to have in all of us, but there comes a point in an interview situation where the interviewer really wants to know what differentiates you from everyone else that they will be meeting with. Yeah. So I'd like you to think around, what are my achievements? Yeah. What can I do, or what have I done over and above my basic position description? Yeah. And what I mean by that is, think about things like, what processes have I improved? What money have I saved? What leadership successes have I had recently? Yeah. Um, have you built up a team from scratch? Yeah. Have you acquired new customers? I don't know, depending on which area you're working on, but really think about everything that's that over and above piece. Yeah. Um, Try and paint a picture, tell a story. Yeah. Put some color and flavor into those examples. So use people's names, use months, dates, timings. Yeah. All of that storytelling will be recognized much more favorably by the interviewer. Yeah. It becomes more real when it's a story and there's more detail, there's more specifics around it. And if you struggle with that, think about, what were you praised for in your last review? Yeah. What were the really positive things that came out of your last review? To where your strengths are. When was the last time a colleague or a customer thanked you for something that you did? Yeah. And you can directly use those examples to highlight your strengths. Any questions, guys, on that? Anything, or does that kind of make sense? Yeah. I think it's just reframing the question, because the question will come in the form of, tell me about your strengths, and tell me why you think you're the best person for this role.
I think as well,
Peter.
a really good point on that is talking about an example that is quite complex. I mean, of course, we have business as usual days. We have days where it's quite straightforward and regimented. But the times you really want to hear in an interview and the things you really want to discuss are those times when the servers went down, or there was a loss in connectivity between teams, or stuff was hitting the fan, in a lighter way to say it. It really driving what were the complexities, what were the challenges. It's going to make not only I mean, your story more interesting, but also it will give the audience, your interviewers, the panel, it will give them so much more information of how you manage yourself and your team or those around you when it's not a standard operating procedure, when there's no written rule as to what the next step is. So it just gives them more of an idea of how you work under pressure or how you need to pivot. It's really powerful, that sort of
Yeah,
piece there in an interview.
absolutely. No, that's a really good point, Pete. And then the next slide is around showing the curiosity. When I'm preparing candidates for an interview, I talk about this a lot. When I interview potential recruitment consultants or I interview candidates for roles with my clients, I like it when they have questions. Yeah, I really do. And when people say to me at the end of an interview, "No, I think you've covered everything," that yeah, it doesn't sit. Because there's always questions, yeah. But sometimes during an interview, you just can't think of them there and then. That's why we have to prepare these questions. And don't get me wrong, a lot of these questions will be covered throughout the interview. So you don't want to go asking them again, but there will be a lot that haven't. So I think to maybe help you, I've kind of documented in there some of the types of topics that you might want to ask questions around. So and I've also jotted down just for my own notes type of questions I might ask if I was going to an interview. So I would say something like to the hiring manager, "I had a look at your profile on LinkedIn. I see you've been with the business for 5 years. Tell me a bit about why you like working for the organization." People love to be asked questions about themselves. They love it. They absolutely love it. Yeah. What are the growth plans for the business moving forward? That's an interesting question. It's a wide question, yeah, but it's interesting. I know that you've mentioned you've got a great culture in the organization, but how does that kind of play out on a day-to-day basis? Let me know. Yeah. What are the key challenges in the department? I'm just looking at the time. I'm talking too much. News telling me stop. Is there anything I haven't articulated well enough? This is a good one to end on, actually. Is there anything that I haven't articulated well enough that you would like me to expand on? And that gives you an example. If there was something in there that they weren't quite sure about, that gives you that opportunity. So typically you will be asked questions at the end, but feel free. Remember, an interview should be a conversation. It's not master servant. It should not feel like that. So ask questions as you go along. There's nothing wrong with doing that at all. Awesome.
Especially
Pete,
if you're covering particular questions as well. It's, I mean, even asking the why and a little bit more around that, it's just going to be really, really powerful and showing a
yeah.
bit more, curiosity and interest, and really tying, it's your interview, it's not theirs. So you're there to get the information and really sort of
Mhm.
understand on beyond a position description what you're applying for and what you're interviewing for.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
It's two-way.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll jump into the next scene just to try and stay on time with everything. So authentic and open communication. I mean, first and foremost, you always want to begin with just being yourself, and what that means is being truthful about your skills, and not hiding in terms of your personality and how you present yourself in a professional environment. It's something to just be you. If you do end up sort of trying to put a facade or anything like that, it can often sort of hide away that later down the line it might not be the role you fit into, and it might just get that cultural sort of piece there. So really in terms of something that I sort of find to get authenticity and open communication, I, in an interview, really love it when candidates share something that's beyond the writing of their resume. And I know we were talking a little bit before in examples, but exempling that sort of that work or those juicy stories or where the servers were on fire, those really give an authentic you self on the job, and it means that your future employer, that manager, will be able to really paint that picture of you in the team. They'll start thinking about how you gel with the internal members or other stakeholders in the business or partners even. They'll really see that come together. I think one thing as well is not to overplay where your strengths are, and I think one thing that's overlooked is knowing what you don't know. I think that's massively powerful. Knowing automatically where your shortfalls are or where you do need development, it means that you're giving the business that opportunity that from day one, they know where you're going to or where they'll need to improve you in on. So I think mentioning a little bit about sort of your development areas, and it doesn't have to be anything catastrophic. It can be something that you just haven't had previous exposure because your position's been in a particular division or environment or a structure. So something about how it sort of really, it comes together can paint that picture for your future employer. I think, especially in the conversational kind of piece as well, that an interview sort of opens up and ties in is to watch out in how you converse your experience. I mean, one thing, for instance, I find that, and Kaz, I'm sure you sort of feel this as well, when you meet with candidates, they often try to almost recite their resume. Now, I think you need to play your resume and your interview a little bit differently. I mean, your resume, that gets you the conversation. I think the conversation is what really gets you the role. So you need to, I think, a little bit beyond the lines of your resume and the real value add sort of pieces in there as well. As we talked about before, asking questions along the way, keeping it an open kind of forum. I mean, you will have to mimic or play in terms of how the setting is going in an interview. I mean, you'll see a whole bunch of different structures. So one interview one day might be completely different to another interview the next day, and you'll have to sort of read the room a little bit, which we'll talk in the next slide as well. Kaz, anything else that you want to sort of add to that in the communication sense or the authenticity sense of your candidates?
I think the point that you made around the honesty around development areas, slight caveat to that for me would be, and I would ask if someone said to me, let's say, I'm trying to improve my presentation skills. My presentation skills. I'm not great at presentation skills. I get really nervous, don't enjoy it, rah, rah, rah. That's absolutely fine. My next question would be, so what are you doing personally to try and improve that skill? So you could say to that interviewer, I need to work on my presentation skills. What I've been doing now is some online videos training. I've signed up to, I don't know, Toastmasters. I've been there myself. I did that a few years ago. I'm trying to practice, whatever that might be. It's a simple example, but show that you acknowledge and you're making progress, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, showing that self-motivation, taking accountability for your own development. I mean, it's all well, I think it's a great point you make there. It's all well and good to know where you require development, but taking the first step sits with yourself, I think, and then a business can really build upon that. We'll move into the next area of interview dynamics, and I guess sort of starting off with a typical structure of an interview. I mean, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour or anything like that, I mean, commonly interviews will start off with some kind of icebreaker. Get you talking, get you familiar with the environment, open up a little bit about yourself. I mean, often if it's a conversational piece, the interviewers, they'll have prepared a couple of questions, and I'm more commonly than not, there will usually be a bit of buffer time left at the end in terms of questions and any sort of discussion points that you have as well. So it's something to think about. If there's any information that whether it's the human resources team or the recruitment team give you in terms of already what to expect in the interview, just having a think about that, and even thinking about the time frame that you do have, trying to stay on track and stay relevant with the conversation will be highly regarded, really, just to make sure you maximize the most out of your interview. And this second point, listening versus talking, I think it's something that often people just start talking and talking and talking and talking at, and then the interviewer might ask a question, but often we sometimes see that people are more so just ready to say the next thing that's on their mind, or the next point that's maybe on their notepad that they want to get across in the interview. I think it's sometimes just when a question's asked, and even just taking the 3 or 5 seconds that it is to just digest the question, or digest the context that they're asking it within. I think that it will just add a bit more of a natural discussion and natural thought process to articulating your response. I mean, I think it's sometimes a bit of a sign of nerves when people try and instantly respond to a question, or instantly butt in to a response. But taking that time to slow yourself down, set into what the question is, and really articulate your specialization, your skill set, or the experience that you had in relation to it, it will just make it feel a lot more natural, a lot more organized throughout the whole discussion. And I think when tying into that, the sort of next point of answers being short and relevant, I mean, I know I've done it before, Kaz, I'm sure you have too. We've all made that mistake to ramble a bit too much at times. And sometimes, look, it's sometimes a bit of a sign of just being unprepared. It can be nerves. It can be a multitude of things. But taking that time to listen, understand, and especially if you've done that research already, you'll be able to really hit that icebreaker question and answer it. Often an icebreaker is around tell me a little bit about yourself, or tell me a little bit about your career and why you're applying to this job. It's a perfect opportunity to set the tone for the interview. Think about prepping something that maybe is a bit of an icebreaker, a bit of a sales point of yourself, short, sharp, punchy, making them want more to learn more about you. I think as well, even during the more technical questions, thinking about a structure. And I think, like any story, a beginning, a middle, and an end, it makes it easy for the audience and the interviewer to really digest. One thing I find candidates often overlook, and it's something that not just with myself, but even candidates we have an interview, a clear feedback point we do have is not having a resolution, or not having an end result of a talking point. Often we talk about what the scene was. I know I've said multiple times already, the servers are on fire. I need to think of another example, but of a real struggle or a real challenge at work, and then saying what you did, but not necessarily getting to the end result. And I think, just having a very well-roundedness to your point, thinking about what was the resolution. I mean, what were the changes that I did and made? What did they actually provide? And whether it was a short-term achievement, a long-term achievement, talking more about those impacts are really powerful overall there. I do note with time, so I'll try and be quick now as
Do we
well.
have any questions coming through, or just looking?
We'll see if there's any
questions
questions or anything to fall back on. Feel free.
And if you would like, a document sent to you around potential questions that you might want to ask at interview, I've got heaps of material on that I can send. So please, do feel free to reach out or pop in the chat. If you are looking for work right now and you're on the market, or even if you're just thinking about a move, please reach out to us. Yeah. I'm conscious of time, but any final thoughts, Pete, and I'll let you finish off.
Oh, look, I mean, nothing too much. I think it's sometimes we prep ourselves a lot and really put a lot of effort into these into these interviewing experiences, but really at the end of the day it's about trying to make it as simplistic for you as possible, and make the most out of it for your experience. But feel free, there is the chat box as well. If there's any questions, we can hang on for a couple of minutes at the end here if there's any questions around that or anything at all that we can answer for you. But I do appreciate everyone joining today, especially for the first webinar of the year. I'm sure we'll have more coming, so stay tuned on our LinkedIn. We'll keep them going.
Awesome. Oh, we've got a little hand up. Is it? I'm trying to think. Is it Libu? I don't know if you wanted to ask a question or not. And guys, feel free to go if you've got to go. We're conscious we've gone over time a little bit, so don't worry about that. No, I think we're good. Awesome. Everyone have a. Oh, sorry. Wait, I've got a few here. Okay. Oh yeah. How do you properly address why we're leaving a current role? Yeah, that's a really, really good question, actually. Look, you don't need to go into all of the details, and it depends on the reason. It could be a simple reason like I'm moving house, right? And that's all fine. Or it could be that you are in an environment or working within a culture that you are not comfortable with. Yeah. And to be honest, I would be honest. Yeah. I would just say, look, the value alignments in the organization probably aren't quite right. And I think it's time for me to look for an organization where my values are more aligned. It would depend on your reason for leaving. But most people that I meet are leaving jobs for either a practical reason, or it's a personal reason. Yeah. I don't know if you've got anything else on that.
I'd say don't worry too much about getting into the politics of it. I mean, it's probably not the best thing to be bringing up in your interview, but still equally discussing, what that reason might be, whether that's your ambitions, whether it's a new organization, a fresh start, a career change. They're all very valid reasons. I note we have as well, Kaz, another question around asking interviewers for abbreviations and acronyms during an interview, even if it's sort of relevant to the role. I would say yes. It's going to be something highly, highly relevant for you to know on the job. So, and I know we work across different sectors and industries, and there will be sometimes acronyms that will be the exact same acronym but mean completely different things in different industries. So I think it shows more interest and more professionalism to ask what that acronym is, because look, even if you do know the answer, it sometimes might be different for a particular organization or industry in that as well. Kaz, any points on that? Or I'm just checking if there's any more questions.
Yeah, I've just got while connecting with people on LinkedIn or in person, what are some of the value propositions that we can showcase? So I guess if it's on LinkedIn, I would be sending the connection request. I'd be sending a message, say would love to connect, or would like to connect with you. I'm a specialist in, I'm a qualified financial accountant with lots of experience within the retail sector. I see that you're a financial controller with a household retail brand, and would love to join your network. It's more about what's the value to them than it is about what can we get from it, if that makes sense.
I think as well on that, finding for connecting people or LinkedIn or in person. I mean, I know, of course, with these conventions, it can be a bit, you can sort of find people from different industries or different kind of areas. But I think with LinkedIn, if there's a particular sector or if there's a particular industry or even, role type, that you're involved with, sort of thinking about, what's sort of the shared value as well across that. Is really, really, instrumental. I mean, I know that sometimes people aren't necessarily going to connect, for instance, from a completely different industry sector, or even on a geographical scale, it just might not be quite relevant in terms of, the things that they're sharing in each other's network. So just something to think about in terms of the end person. Is it someone that you see fitting in there in your network as well? We've got a question as well about short-term and contract roles. I guess the best way to answer the question of I guess I'm assuming that's a transition to permanent is what that might be addressing.
Yeah, interesting. We've seen a lot, actually, a shift in CVs, especially post-COVID. I mean, there's a lot of people who've taken a lot of time out. There's a lot of people who have been happy to do short-term contract roles. And the market has responded really well. We're not seeing as much pushback on people that have had multiple contracts or done multiple contract opportunities. And sometimes it can even show that you're flexible, that you can walk into various environments and hit the ground running and so on. But I would kind of I would frame it as it's a choice. I chose to do different contract roles. I find it interesting. However, now I'm at a place in my life personally where I would like some more security. I would like to build my brand within one organization, build my career, So don't be afraid if you've had a few different contract roles. I think that's absolutely fine just now. Yeah.
And even as well, because there's permanent opportunities that have, different things that change in the role. Don't think every permanent opportunity is always going to be, running a business as usual. Sometimes there will be projects and pieces along the way. So thinking about why was I engaged on that contract, or what did I achieve on that contract as well? It's going to amplify, I guess, that move to permanent. Look, it is a shift that, of course, that a lot of people sometimes struggle with making. But where I've seen people bridge that gap is, being relevant in terms of if that sort of contract, worked on a particular project, for instance, or had a particular experience that relates to the role, and whether that be a successful delivery, it might even be just covering the particular team, and whether it be a ticketing team or whether it be an accounts team or an operations team, being a business support member that was able to pick up the pieces, or an office manager that was able to pick up the pieces whilst someone was on a long-term leave stint. So there's ways in terms of just sort of making sure that you're relating what that experience was to what you are applying for as well. I think that's all the questions that we have today. So
wonderful. Thanks for your interaction. It was great. Awesome. Thank you to everyone. And we'll see you on the next one.
See you on the next one. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.